Okay, let's get started. I'm going to be sitting in for Chairman Parker today. Why don't we why don't I first call this meeting to order, and let's take a moment of silence. Amen. The July 16th minutes. Do I hear a motion? Has everyone had an opportunity to read them?
Move for approval.
Yeah, moved.
Okay, moved and properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Do we have any public participation today? If not, let's move on to old business. And let's start with an update from the Parks Department. Jason, will you be doing that?
That would be me. I give just kind of a brief update. I think Chairman Parker asked this to be on there. And what we're working on with the Parks Department and capital projects is taking the capital projects schedule that was part of the last year's budget and giving an update on where that stands as it relates to the Parks Department. But one of the things, not to overly burden this effort, but I think is important, is to add in a few other initiatives that we can then submit to council, this committee, other committees as appropriate, that just tracks on a quarterly basis where things stand on capital projects with a 5-year look forward. So normally we do that only once a year as part of the budget process, but I think having that done on a quarterly basis through relating committees will be impactful and helpful, especially when various council members are talking to their constituency.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And speaking of constituents, I'm getting calls now on the low line, Mayor. As you know, there have been a couple of articles in the Post and Courier regarding the low line. More recently today, there was an editorial on the opinion page. At some point, and maybe not today, can you have someone to debrief this committee on where we are with respect to the low line? Because we are...
let me just give a quick debriefing now, and we can have a full presentation on this because I think it's exciting, honestly. And there's been a lot of misinformation out there. I guess the misinformation has been that we are outright rejecting the proposed $7 million funding from the federal government. As you all probably are aware or recall, that budget, that grant was a planning grant that would take about 3 to 5 years. And one of the big hangups was that when it was submitted, a big part of that cost was to study the environmental issues as relating to the low line. And once we were in theory awarded it, the federal government came back and said, actually, you can't use any of the funds from this grant. There was a clarification, said we can't use the funds from this grant to actually study any environmental issues. So kind of wrecked about the majority of reason why we applied for it in the first place. We appealed that and were rejected again. And I met with Congressman Clyburn in DC to ask if there was any hope on getting it back on track. And he said no. So the question is, we need to decide if we want to continue working on that grant, which would probably delay or continue the planning process for at least 3 to 5 years, or do we want to move forward on initiatives that we can do now with groups like the Path Foundation, who is a group that staff members went and met with in Atlanta. And they specialize in finding non-federal grants to do things just like this, and they were successful, and really the driving force behind the low line, I guess, in Atlanta, and have been really excited to take up this initiative. So still in due diligence. Again, a lot of misinformation out there that we're just walking away from $7 million. That's not the case at all. Though I think we will, in all likelihood, once we get to the bottom of this, if we want to get this moving faster, we should seriously consider moving on from that. Because it's been a real delay for several years now. So that's the update, and I hope that clarifies some of the confusion.
Yeah, because it's definitely saying that the city is about to return $7 million to the federal government, and I still would like for us to dive into that a little more. I understand going to the congressman, et cetera, and trying to get it possibly changed, because there is a lot of contaminant that's going to have to be removed before we move forward. But even if we did something not quite what we proposed in the interim, won't we still have to deal with the contaminants?
Yeah, I think, let me do this just so we don't go down a rabbit hole here. Let me have staff prepare a detailed memo on this to circulate to this department and to this committee. Because I think, again, there is a lot of misinformation out there. I think this is a real positive thing. It can be spun, and the paper just seems to pick up that we would potentially return $7 million in federal funding. It's a lot more complicated than that. So let us get you the details. I think it's a fair point. And then if we have additional questions on that, we can take it up as an agenda item at the next meeting.
Okay, and then I have my final question on that. I know that there was a visit to Atlanta to look at the Beltline. And I'm just wondering whether or not Tim Keene, who is now head of one of our sections, who worked extensively in Atlanta, has been pulled into this discussion.
Yeah, he was there.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Didn't know.
He's the one that made the introduction to the Path Foundation.
Okay.
Absolutely. He's very involved. Yeah.
Okay. Again, to me, that's why it's important for us to have this kind of dialogue and this recreation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because these are the kinds of questions that our constituents are asking. Thanks, Mayor. That's been most helpful.
Sure.
Okay. Next on our agenda. That's the extent of the update of the park?
Yes.
Okay. Recreation, registration, and volunteer updates. I'd imagine that would be Laura. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Gregory. From a programming standpoint, we have just finished our summer, and we are now moving into the fall youth sports. I did send a document that I'm hoping will get shared from the clerk's office. It shows the breakdown of all the sports for the fall. We're sitting right now. Yes, looks like Brittany's getting ready to share that. So if you can see that, it shows the divided registration into the areas of the sport and the area. Our registration right now is sitting at about 4,400. We're still taking registration for the girls volleyball league that is run through the schools, but scheduled through us and using on our volleyball courts. So that will add probably another 1,200 girls to that registration. We're still accepting adult sports registration, but our numbers are really good. We're sitting where we were last fall, which is about all we can handle. Our older age groups, the 9 and up, have already started practices. Their games will begin in September 16th. The younger kids, the 5 to 8 year olds, their practices start this weekend, and they will start their games on the 21st. So we're kind of moving in that direction. It's been once Hurricane Debbie got out of here, it's been really good weather for us, a little cooler. Our kids are out playing. Councilmember Parker had asked me to break down specifically James Island for her. So I'll go ahead and report that out so it's reflected in the minutes. On James Island, there's 1,620 children playing sports. Of those 1,620, 1,064 of those are city of Charleston residents. So 2/3 of our James Island area is city of Charleston residents that are playing in the sports program. We've got all of our volunteer coaches on board now. Uniforms have been ordered, fields are being prepared, the schedules are being put together. So we're in a really good spot and we're excited. School starting a little early did help us get our kids back and get our parents thinking about sports. So we're really excited to be running on time this year. I can answer any questions.
How's your staffing?
Staffing is good. We're still, Councilmember Gregory, finding that people don't look for part-time employment like they used to. I think the other side hustles in the world are maybe a little more lucrative. But we're as far as full staff, we're only down one position, two positions. I'm sorry, our adult sports coordinator is leaving to follow his girlfriend, almost fiance, to another city. So we're down two, but we've got some folks that are helping out and ready to step in.
Is it possible to combine any of the part-times into full-time?
We've done that, and HR has been very helpful to us doing that. At some point, the math becomes off though, because once we start playing games on Saturdays, I'll need people in different facilities. So I'll need X number of people monitoring soccer at West Ashley Park, X at Governors, X at Ackerman, X at Bayview. And then you've got football. So we still need some bodies, but we have combined some positions and HR has been extremely helpful to us in that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone have any questions of Laurie?
Yes, sir, if you don't mind. Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Councilmember.
Hey, Ms. Yarborough, just wanted to ask you, do you have a feel for how registrations compare to this time last year?
So great question. Everything is about the same, maybe even a tick higher. The only thing that's a little down in one area is youth tackle football, but it's up on Daniel Island. So I think the emergence of a new high school over on the Cainhoy area has kind of beefed up some interest in boys tackle football. But we do have approximately the same number of kids playing this season as last season, which last year's numbers were record numbers for us.
Very good. And with all the rain, are your fields in good shape now? We're okay?
Everything's in really good shape. Our Parks Department had brought in sand for doing some top dressing and some aerating, and we had that sitting around. So as soon as Debbie hit it, they did that process and everything's taken really well. Our grasses are really coming in well. So yes, I think everything is in a very good place right now.
Great. Well, thank you for all your work. Look forward to a great fall. So thank you.
Me too. Please, I hope to see some of y'all out there on a busy Saturday. And the Parks Department's done a great job of getting our fields ready.
Great. Any more questions, Laurie? If not, let's keep moving on the agenda. Discussion of Johns Island recreation options, requested by Councilmember McBride. Councilmember McBride.
Thank you, Councilman Gregory. I just wanted to follow up from last month's meeting where we started to brainstorm how to add more options for Johns Island, knowing that we have a current limitation of facilities and fields. I've invited to this meeting, and I don't know if you're all here or not, but and I got Councilwoman Parker's approval for this. Brad Taggart, hopefully is here. He's the vice chairman of Charleston County Parks and Recreation Commission.
I am.
You're here, good. Okay, I invited Councilman Joe Boykin from the county. I'm not sure I don't think he can make it. Mary Bull, she's one of the leads of the Bear Island Little League, which is heavy on Johns Island. Kenyon Cook is part of the Johns Island Football League. And David Whittington is proposing an adult soccer league, and I'll get to those ladies and gentlemen here momentarily. Just want to let you all know they're here in the meeting. And I don't know how to share my screen, or if I have that ability to or not. So I had a presentation I wanted to walk through.
You should be able to share your screen. If not, I believe Jennifer forwarded that to me.
Okay, so we can just, oh, do you have it, Brittany, the PowerPoint?
Yes, just give me a moment to pull it up.
Okay. And I got to call an audible to what's in, and the reason I'm doing a presentation is because it'll keep things moving. I don't want to dominate the whole meeting with this discussion again, because I'm grateful that so much time was given to it last week. And I just wanted to follow up on the mayor's guidance last week and present to the city and to the recreation team some people and some options to brainstorm together. This next slide. Okay, just rehashing again what we've already talked about a few times. It's not just Johns Island, but also up in West Ashley. As you can see, that whole area there is just severely lacking in parks. And yes, we're working on it. Yes, we're investing in fields and facilities. It's going to take a few years. I just want the public to know that the city is investing in those things and it will happen, but it's going to take time. But in the meantime, the lack of parks adds to traffic significantly and obviously takes away a lot of options for parents and kids. Next slide. Just another example of all the parks around the city compared to Johns Island and Western West Ashley. Next slide. And this is just an example. Like what I want to do, the brainstorm idea I have is I want to, looking at the fact that we all serve, whether you're county, CCSD, city, even private, in this case, we all serve the same constituents. So I don't want to hash this out here. I'm not asking for anyone to agree to anything. I just want to present the idea that, you know, when the city is presenting options to constituents and parents and kids, when we lack options because of facilities and certain circumstances that we're facing, I would like the idea of working on some MOUs or some partnerships with private and county, et cetera, which we can hash out in a later meeting, so that when we, the city, put out options to parents and kids, we are giving them more options, because there are more options. It's just that we, the city, don't have them ourselves right now. But there are more options out there, a lot more options. And I just want to find a way to synchronize our advertising and things like that. Next slide. And think about too, a lot of the constituents on Johns Island, and that's just the one option that we offered, just an example. Next slide. Keep in mind that a lot of the constituents on Johns Island, in the city portion of Johns Island, there's a whole lot of people that are brand new to the area or have been here for 5 years or less, or 10 years or less, a large percentage. So a lot of them don't know what already exists and don't know where to look. So that's where I think the city could help with that by partnering with private groups in the meantime, and of course the county and CCSD, to be more giving the public more information or options. So that's just a summary of what was said last week. And there's the link from last month's YouTube, where Councilman Gregory insisted that I follow up on this and get things for Johns Island with the city. So Councilman Gregory, I'm following your direct admonition to see this through best I can. So, okay, next slide. So I just threw some frame of reference out there so people understand, not that the county Mullet Hall, the county park, is a solution or the solution. I'm just giving people some visual perspective here of where that park is, which will lead to Mr. Taggart. I might call you in here in a second here. And Councilman Boykin isn't here, but I think Mr. Taggart, this may be a good opportunity. We had talked last week or last month about, you know, what things could be available, could potentially the city use in the county or near the county, and you know, for future partnerships. And you had I ran into you or talked to you last week. I met you for the first time, I think, and you had mentioned that there could be some other land that's available that could be acquired for more park space. And if you're prepared to talk about that briefly, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, if I may,
Sure.
just so that we stay on schedule.
Yeah.
Can we do 10 minutes for these presentations? A bit more. Councilmember McBride?
Can we do what?
About 10 minutes for the presentation.
Oh yeah, should be almost done here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Bradley Taggart. I'm a Johns Island resident and the Vice Chairman of Charleston County Parks and Recreation Commission. As a Parks Commissioner, I'm always on the lookout for properties that would make good park sites. I found a couple of adjoining parcels that I think have some good potential located at the corner of River Road and Murraywood Road on the east side of Johns Island, which is an area that is completely devoid of parks despite being very populated. Mr. McBride, do you possibly have that parcel image available?
I don't, unfortunately, just for the sake of time. If you're able to just kind of quickly just talk about it, and then offline, you can give the TMS number
Okay.
to the staff.
Okay. One of the parcels is 17 acres and the other is 4 acres for a total of 21 acres. So room for playgrounds, little league sports fields, etc. It's located amongst several neighborhoods and is adjacent to Whitney Lake subdivision, which is a very large, if not the largest development on Johns Island. The southern end of the property has a large pond surrounded by mature trees. So a park-like setting already exists in that area. There was drainage installed on the property years ago, so it's largely dry outside of the pond. There's a very interesting feature to the property, and that's that the I-526 project, which is on the ballot in November, the project has a 12-foot wide, 9-mile long bike and pedestrian lane that will go the length of it. And the northern exit off of 526 on Johns Island comes in directly across from this property. So this could potentially allow people to park, unload their bikes, and serve not only as a park with fields and everything else, but as a launch point to use this incredible new piece of infrastructure.
All right, I'm going to pause you just for the sake of time. That's awesome, and I wanted more just to kind of introduce you and let everyone know that you have some land potentially identified. I would like for you and the following people we'll talk about in a second to meet down, if that's okay with the city, to meet down in City Hall to plan and to brainstorm with what you're presenting and what I'll introduce here in a second, the Bear Island Little League and the soccer programs. That's ultimately what I want to do. We're not going to solve anything today. I just want to kind of present some options, introduce some folks, and then ask a commitment from the city to meet, downtown and talk about some options so we can get some solutions. That's all.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is it county-owned land? Who owns it?
No, it's city land.
Oh, it's our land.
If it was county, I would have been all over this a long time ago. No, it's in the city. So if we were to greenbelt it, it would have to come from city greenbelt funds. At least that's what.
But who owns the land?
The land is owned by Southeastern Recapitalization. So it's owned by a developer. And
that's the question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
All right. So thank you for that. That's awesome. We could talk about that in more detail down at City Hall soon, hopefully. Any other last comments?
Chairman McBride, thank you for doing this, and you certainly have our commitment to meet and discuss this further.
Awesome. Thanks, sir. This next slide, really quick, I just want to give the people, we'll just skip that one. That's just the Johns Island County Park. That's what it offers. And I've already kind of talked about this, so I'll just really quickly introduce the 3 people I mentioned, and I'm asking them 30 seconds, 45 seconds or less a piece. Again, we're just here to introduce you all and let everybody kind of know the programs that you have or are proposing, and then we'll hash out the details in person. So next slide, please. Mary Bull, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd first like to say, does anybody have any questions about what I sent you?
Oh, about your resume of all the programs that you offer for the different age groups and stuff?
Yes.
I don't. It's part of the package that I submitted. Yeah, go ahead.
We offer Little League baseball and softball here. Currently, we're in the process of getting ready to build 9 new fields, so we have a total of 12 fields here on the island. we have seen the need for it here for sports. And we have
And I do have to pause really quick. You're going to have 12 baseball fields on Johns Island.
yes.
That's
Do multi,
mind-blowing. Okay, that's incredible. And again, just a resource that private raising money to do it, that we could potentially, I think with an MOU or something, tap into that. It just, so I thank you for doing that. And the demand is clearly there. There's kids all over the island in the area that are really taking advantage of that. All right, I want to cut you off. I'm just going to move on to Kenyon Cook really quick. 60 seconds, Kenyon.
Thank you. My name is Kenyon Cook. Been involved with soccer here in the Low Country for over 30 years. And 4 years ago, during COVID, I decided to experiment with a youth soccer program on Johns Island called the Football Play Zone. Over the past 4 years, we've had over 300 kids. I decided 2 years ago to affiliate with the James Island Youth Soccer Club, a neighboring club, the oldest club in South Carolina, to provide more resources to kind of help grow soccer on Johns Island. What we're looking at doing now is creating an island soccer league, not taking the name away from Barrier Island, but it makes sense, and to grow not a rec or a club program, but kind of a hybrid. So the growth potential is phenomenal, and not just for youth soccer, but for adult soccer as well. And so there's a tremendous need. Right now, we're using Hot Gap Middle School for training, and on Saturday mornings, we're having to drive over to James Island to play our games because we simply don't have any other available fields on Johns Island. But the future is bright for soccer on Johns Island.
So again, high demand and kids are having right now to go to James Island, adding to the traffic and limited options on Johns Island. So the demand is there. That's the point I want to make sure to get across. Thank you, Mr. Cook and Mr. Whittington.
Mayor Cogswell and Councilman McBride and Gregory and everybody at the city who's on the Zoom call. We appreciate your interest in Johns Island. I've built a home and live here now and work here on the island. And I've recently taken the position of the boys soccer coach at the local high school, St. John's. So it's a volunteer position, but it certainly allowed me an opportunity to sort of come in touch with some folks that largely don't have the ability to do the pay for play system that's traditional among soccer club programs throughout the South and the country, really. So really what I have envisioned is a much bigger undertaking. It would depend on a lot of people playing a role. We may have on the call with us Quentin Tompkins, who's from MUSC's Outreach Services Program. I've been talking to council at Trident Tech to see if I can get them interested in getting involved. And I've got a commitment from the Fellowship of Christian Athletes to support financially a club on Johns Island for these kids who really don't have any other opportunity to play recreational or club soccer. So with all that being said, I'd love to explore some sort of cooperative effort by a number of entities if we can get them all interested and involved. But that's the vision, and need a lot of help to pull it off, but would welcome your interest and continued involvement for the folks on Johns Island. So thank you so much for your time.
That's it. Awesome. Thanks a lot. And these folks I'd love to meet down in City Hall with the Charleston County Parks representatives, and I think we can make something happen. And I'll stop focusing on Johns Island recreation for a few months, and hopefully things will start moving along.
Don't stop.
Well, I just mean I won't take up so much time in these meetings. I'll keep on it in the background. But
I know. But I think that you're making an unbelievable difference on the island in general. So when I say don't stop, just keep it up. This is just one aspect of the kinds of things that you're bringing to the attention of council that has in fact been ignored for many, many years. So we appreciate you.
You're welcome. And thank you for the city for helping to team up with us.
Okay. Any questions for
Councilman
Councilmember Shealy?
Yeah, thank you. You had asked earlier if there was anybody for any public comment, and I had gotten a message from Craig Peterkin that he wasn't able to get in. It was telling him the meeting hadn't started yet. He may be on now. I don't know whose iPhone that is. So
Okay.
Now I'm not sure.
What's his name? Greg?
Yeah, Craig
Okay.
Peterkin. And
Mr.
Craig, if you're
Peterkin?
on, I think you'd have to hit *6 to unmute.
Yeah.
Councilman,
Yeah.
see, that was my phone. This is David Whittington. That was my iPhone. I apologize. I had
Oh,
my
was it?
phone.
Okay.
Yes,
I see Mr. Cregan,
Okay.
right?
You may be.
It's Mr. Peterkin, if you're on, I think if you hit *6,
Yeah.
it will unmute you on your phone.
I see his picture. I see he's on the screen. Can he hear us? I don't think so. Mr. Kenyon? Mr. Kenyon?
No, it's Peterkin. Craig
Yes, I
Peterkin.
see him.
Kenyon has already spoken.
Yeah,
Okay.
this was Craig Peterkin.
Peterkin. Okay.
He had asked earlier if he could.
Okay.
Councilman Waring has his hand up too. I don't know if you
Yes.
saw that.
Yes. Mr. Peterkin? Okay. Councilmember Waring.
Yeah, I just had a general question. Maybe Mr. Kronsberg or somebody could answer this. Do we have any monies left allocated our Greenbelt funds for the city? Or have we utilized all our funding, Mr. Kronsberg?
Yeah, yes, sir. We have a balance of Greenbelt funds that are available. I don't have the specific number off the top of my head, but I could get that for you relatively easily. So there are unused balance of money available.
All right, great. Thanks.
And then it's not earmarked for anything else at this point.
That's correct. We have one application going currently, but there will be remaining funds left over. There's nothing that it's assigned to yet.
Yeah, I think Mr. McBride might be interested in that total.
Right. And I think with the county participating, there might be more Greenbelt funds specifically earmarked for the island, hopefully. Once you get your meeting together, Councilmember McBride, there's no telling what may come out of it. Any more questions?
Councilman Gregory, I believe Mr. Peterkin may be on now. I see there's an unmuted guest one down there at the bottom.
Okay. Mr. Peterkin? Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. I've already gone through this with several members. So what I'm looking for today are answers. I've seen proposals here for this Johns Island County Park and an MOU for a baseball league. So I'm looking for answers, and some of the things that are in this memorandum with this Barrier Island Baseball League go back to some of the things I commented on emails and have been commenting on emails to the Parks and Recreation staff for a number of years. So now I'm looking for answers. I'm also looking for the chairperson to step aside. I believe based on her political campaign and statements that she's made in the past, that she hasn't earned the right to determine how my grandkids, who by the way were born the same time that she arrived in the Low Country, and not knowing the history of rec league in South Carolina, either football or baseball. These Little League teams were the result of CRT, which she doesn't support. Okay, so she doesn't have the right to tell us how I'm going to spend my tax dollars for recreation programs for my grandkids or my descendants.
In all fairness, in all fairness, excuse me, in all fairness to our chairperson, who is not here, I can say that she's an unbelievable advocate across the board for all sports. If there is an issue, however, I think, again, if you become a part of Councilmember McBride pulling all this together, I think that would be the time for you to start asking specifically for resources, technical assistance, et cetera, for the program.
Excuse me. Like I said, I don't want to hear that. That's a stock political answer. I've been doing this and commenting and attending public meetings and everything. My kids and grandkids and now great grandkids have been participants in the rec programs throughout the city over a number of decades. Okay, so I know what I refer to. Just the fact that the Barrier Island Baseball League would come and ask the city for support based on the history of those leagues and how they were developed tells me that you're participating in a policy of denial, omission, and exclusion. And if the city wants to continue on that path, then I will continue to fight you. Y'all want to put lights up in West Ashley Park, okay, of all places, and a gate. It already has a gate and it has a light. How can you justify expenditures for lights in a park that closes at sundown? Kevin spoke on all the nefarious activities going on in that park. What, Canadian geese resting in the park at night because it's empty? That's not even a park, it's a baseball and soccer athletic field. It's on the water, but there's not a good fishing spot. You have dirt trails, alligators and snakes. That's what West Ashley Park is. I asked for an outdoor basketball facility. Now you want to partner with the county? The county, Charleston County, doesn't even have basketball at the brand new C.E. Williams Middle School.
Okay.
They don't have any at the high school.
Okay.
I have asked. No, listen. I have asked for.
No.
Y'all have surplus. I asked y'all to buy land, buy up some of this land, and incorporate a city park, standalone city park, not in the middle of some subdivision. Because your track
record. Can I ask you? Wait a minute. I have to ask you a question. What area specifically you're talking about? West Ashley or Johns Island?
I'm talking about West Ashley, but Johns Island was a significant connection to West Ashley. And we know how limited facilities are.
Excuse me, sir. Okay, we've listened. Okay, and we are taking.
But you didn't hear.
May I complete, sir? Okay, and we're taking seriously what you're talking about. I do think, however, that there needs to be an additional meeting with you to talk about these issues directly. We cannot take much more time on this issue, but I do think you're bringing up issues of concern that we need to address as a council and as a committee.
All right, now I appreciate. I don't want to take up your time. Like I said, if you want to know the full scope, and I can go on that, look at that trail of emails.
And I definitely will get with our chairman as well as the rest of our committee and talk further, excuse me, sir, further about your issues. This is not the time for us to try to answer all of your questions. We will address them. I'm committing to you that we will listen and address them. This is not the time for that, okay?
All right, time is of the essence because y'all ain't gonna spend a dime for no lights on that park without coming.
Sir, we've listened to you for quite some time, and I'm not disagreeing with your concern. My issue is time right now. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate you, and we'll listen. Thank you. Let's move on to the next issue here. Do we have anybody else from the public? If not, we go to new business. And again, this is a discussion and presentation on the use of Johns Island Park. Who will be discussing that?
Councilmember Gregory, this is a follow-up to Councilmember Waring and Councilmember McBride's request to talk to the folks at CCPRC about Mullet Hall and the ability of the city to possibly lease or use some spaces there. Melina from Real Estate and I went out on August the 2nd and met with their staff, including the new executive director, Kevin Bowie, to look at that property. And while it's beautiful and it's an equestrian center, it's not ready for athletic play. But I think Melina's on here and can give you a better response to that from a real estate point of view. But we did make that visit and look at that field. So I'll let her take now.
Good afternoon, committee members. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Lori. Like Lori said, we did go out and we visited the Johns Island County Park being used as the Mullet Hall Equestrian Center. And I believe as Councilmember McBride overviewed in his presentation, there's a number of different uses there, primarily equestrian use and events. There's a dog park, Frisbee golf, things like that. The fields are not in a current state that would be suitable for youth athletic sports, in my opinion. Just to share, and apologize, I'm trying to be brief. I know that you guys are on a tight schedule, but just to share my screen very briefly, this area right here is the county park, and as you can see, it's primarily wooded. There is an open area over here where you come in on the entrance, and this is the area that we were looking at potentially for the youth soccer fields. The county does seem amenable to allowing us the use of these fields, and I understand Jason Kronsberg had a follow-up conversation with them, and they are trying to possibly expand the uses to encourage more use at this park. So they would be open to the idea of allowing the city to use some of this space for youth soccer fields. What we're doing right now as part of our due diligence is trying to put together a cost estimate of what we expect it would take to get these fields into a usable state. Like I mentioned, it is primarily used for equestrian events, so the field is riddled with holes. Armadillos apparently love this area and burrow quite a bit. So what we would anticipate is that the area would need to be graded, fill dirt would need to be brought in. We would need seeding, pest control in this area, as well as lighting for the soccer fields, and potential other amenities, such as restrooms. I think that they do have restrooms on site, but that park, county staff closes the park at night, so the city would be responsible for opening it up, maintaining it, any of the restroom facilities, unless we were to build our own facilities, which of course we would have to maintain as well. We do have parks putting together and looking at a potential estimate. One of the bigger costs that I foresee is the installation of lighting. The James Island Youth Soccer Club recently installed their own lighting at the Bayview complex, and that was not a small cost for 4 fields. I believe it was over $500,000 for the installation of the lighting there. Talking with Lori, we would hope to do maybe 6 to 8 youth soccer fields at this site. So I do anticipate that the costs were to be cheap, but the land and the use is available there and could be made usable. So like I mentioned, we are looking into the cost to make these fields suitable, and I would be happy to come back to committee and report on, that cost estimate once we have something more solid to share with the committee. The other aspect of this that I just wanted to point out is that even though the county would be open to allowing this use, they have mentioned that any improvements that the city would make would potentially need to be removed once we're done. So, that lighting that I was describing that would need to be installed is more than likely going to also have to be removed once we finished our use. I would love to see a long-term solution to this as opposed to a short-term temporary use on somebody else's land. But like I said, the opportunity's there, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions. I did just want to mention to Mr. Taggart, if he's still on, I did find those 2 properties that you mentioned at the corner of River and Murraywood, and I would love the opportunity to discuss that more with you in the future about the potential there.
Yep, very good. Let's definitely set that up.
Great.
Any questions?
I do.
Yes, Councilmember Waring.
Ms. Denwood, when it's removed, are they also talking about the dirt that we were bringing, or just the lights?
No, sir. I believe they're just talking about like the installation of the lights or any other facilities or equipment that is installed. I'm sure that they would be happy to keep the dirt.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Do they have a long-term use that they want to do with the land?
I understand that they're just trying to open up other uses. Currently, like I said, it's primarily equestrian use, but maybe that's not as drawing of the crowds as they were hoping for. So they are looking to amend possibly their master plan. Other portions of this property is currently leased out for farmland. So very little of it, from what I shared on my screen, is actually cleared for potential recreation space. A lot of the trails are through wooded areas.
Okay. Do you think they're interested in leasing it to us for $1?
I believe so. We didn't get into the numbers of what a rental amount would be, but my early conversations with Mr. Bowie, I got the impression that they would be allowed to or open to leasing it to us if we're willing to make all of the improvements for a de minimis amount of rent. But that is something we did not specifically discuss.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
wouldn't some of these kids come from obviously the city, but wouldn't some of them also come
from the county? Yes.
Okay.
That's where I was headed. Thank you. Again, going back to Councilmember McBride, I think again that's going to have to be a part of all this discussion when you bring the groups together, because I really think this seems to be working out pretty good in terms of identifying alternatives.
Yeah.
Really think so.
Yeah.
Any go ahead.
Just ask. I mean, we all just keep in mind we're all serving the same constituents.
Exactly.
There's so much overlap between county and city. It's just let's work together.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank Ms. Dinwiddie and Ms. Yarborough for looking at that and reporting back. I mean, that's some good information you came back with. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's good. Good work.
Speaking of overlap, the last thing on our agenda is the memorandum of understanding between the town of James Island and the city of Charleston. And Laurie, you'll be taking care of this one?
Yes, sir, I will. So in the past, we have had an agreement with the town of James Island under some of their previous administrations, where they do not offer youth sports for their children, the residents of the town of James Island. So they allowed them to sign up with the city of Charleston on James Island, and the town of James Island paid the difference. So if if a city resident pays $50 for their child to play, a non-resident would pay $75. So we allow them to register if they are in the town of James Island for $50, only on James Island now. And then we invoice the town of James Island for that difference, and they send the city a check to cover those higher fees. They prefer to do that rather than developing their own fields and their own programs, and yet it makes sure that all of their children can participate in youth sports. That has worked really well. During COVID, we let that agreement lapse. This brings it back up, and should start July 1st and would run through the 2025, and we could extend it further. So it doesn't tie us up forever, but it would allow those town of James Island children to continue to register for city of Charleston youth sports programs only at the city resident fee, and then the town of James Island pays that difference directly to the city. So
Okay.
it's worked well for us in the past, and Councilmember Parker was very much in favor of that.
And that's starting July of this year through July of 25.
Correct, and we have the ability to extend it 3 more years after that.
Right,
So,
right.
yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
saw. Okay. Any questions or discussions? We all have a copy of it in our packet. I did have an opportunity to sort of read through it, and it's sort of standard stuff that we've been doing for a while. Any questions, any discussions? This is something we need to vote on and recommend to council. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor of the memorandum of understanding between the town of James Island and the city of Charleston to move forward, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Is there anything else to come before this committee?
Councilmember Gregory, it's Lori again. May I make one more updated report to you all? There'd been some conversation at our last 2 meetings about the use of the school district facilities when they're not in use. I just wanted to let you all know that on July 10th of this year, we put in writing, we being the city's recreation department, in writing to the Charleston County School District for the use of middle schools in the West Ashley, James Island, and Johns Island area. We've not gotten a response back from those schools yet from the district, but we have put in our request to have access to the schools, including the gymnasium. So I wanted to let you know those letters have already been written, the permits have been filled out, and we're awaiting a response.
And that include Gresham Maggot, right?
It does not include Gresham Maggot at this point because I've not been able to get over there and do an inspection to see what that looks like. But I will get over and do that, sir. These are the schools that I know are active and we wouldn't have to go in and do anything to. So I do need to get over and see Gresham Maggot to make sure that we have the resources to offer programming there.
Okay, because the last time I was there, it may need a little doctoring here and there.
That was my fear, that, and then it may need some additional equipment in terms of seating or making basketball goals lower and higher and all. So we know these middle schools can accommodate us as long as we're able to get in there on their schedules without having to pay any additional dollars.
Okay. Again, thank you. Anything else to be brought before this committee?
Nope.
Councilmember Waring?
No, looking forward to seeing all y'all in about 2 hours, hour and a half.
No, I'll see y'all in about a half hour. All right. If not, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember McBride.